2 weeks after the defeat of the Zephyrian invasion fleet, something unprecedented happened. Supreme Chancellor Mordeth himself arrived at Earth aboard a small diplomatic vessel. For the first time in Zephyrian history, the leader of their empire had traveled to negotiate with what they had once called a lesser species. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the newly built space station at the edge of Earth's solar system. Through the thick windows, he could see the sleek alien ship approaching. Next to him, Captain Ryan Hayes and his crew waited nervously. They had become heroes overnight, but now they faced an entirely different kind of challenge. "I still can't believe they're actually coming to us," Dr. Lisa Carter said, checking her tablet for the 100th time. "In all our studies of Zephyrian culture, we never found a single example of their leadership traveling for diplomatic talks." Admiral Kate Sullivan joined them at the window. "It shows how much our victory shook them. They're scared, and scared. People make mistakes. We need to be careful not to push too hard." The space station had been built in just 10 days, using human and alien technology working together. After Captain Hayes had shared life support systems with the disabled Zephyrian, both sides had begun exchanging technical information. It was a small step, but it proved that cooperation was possible. Hayes watched the alien ship dock with the station. "Are we ready for this?" Morrison nodded. "As ready as we can be. Remember, we're not here to humiliate them. We want a peace that both sides can accept." The diplomatic meeting took place in a large conference room with windows facing both Earth and the stars beyond. When Supreme Chancellor Mordeth entered, Hayes was surprised by how normal the alien leader looked. Without the intimidating lighting and camera angles from their previous transmissions, Mordeth seemed smaller and less threatening. The Chancellor was accompanied by Admiral Vextar, who looked uncomfortable but determined. The defeated Admiral had specifically requested to be part of the negotiations, claiming he had learned important lessons from his encounter with humans. "Commander Morrison," Chancellor Mordeth said in careful English, "we come seeking understanding. Your species has achieved something we thought impossible. We wish to know how." Morrison gestured for everyone to sit at the large conference table. "We're willing to share our knowledge, but first we need to discuss the future relationship between our peoples." Dr. Carter activated a holographic display showing the battle data from the Defiance's victory. "Your fleet was defeated not by superior weapons, but by a different way of thinking about problems. We call it innovation." The Chancellor studied the technical data carefully. "Your engineer found a weakness in our shield network that our best scientists never considered. How is this possible?" Engineer Amy Johnson, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "We approach problems differently. Instead of relying on what we know works, we try to find new solutions. We combine ideas from different fields and test things that seem impossible." Admiral Vextar leaned forward. "But this technique you used, it required sacrifice. Your crew knew they might die to save your world. Our analysis shows the Defiance barely survived the electromagnetic pulse." Captain Hayes nodded. "That's part of who we are. Humans don't give up when things look hopeless. We try harder." Chancellor Mordeth was quiet for a long moment. "For 800 years, the Zephyrian Empire has conquered other species through superior technology and overwhelming force. We believed this was the only way to maintain order in the galaxy, but your victory suggests a different approach." "What do you mean?" Morrison asked. "Instead of ruling through fear, perhaps we could learn from the species we encounter. Your innovative thinking could help us solve problems that have plagued our empire for centuries." Dr. Carter brought up a new holographic display showing maps of both human and Zephyrian territories. "We propose a partnership instead of conquest. Humans could serve as advisors and problem solvers for complex situations throughout your empire." The Chancellor looked skeptical. "Why would you help us?" "We came to conquer your world," Hayes answered before Morrison could speak. "Because we believe cooperation works better than conflict. When we helped repair your disabled ships, both sides learned something valuable. Imagine what we could accomplish working together. Admiral Vextar spoke quietly. Chancellor, I have seen human behavior firsthand. When my fleet was helpless, they could have left us to die. Instead, they saved our lives. This is not the behavior of a species that seeks conquest. The negotiations continued for 3 days. Both sides discovered that they had more in common than expected. The Zephyrians had advanced technology but struggled with creative problem-solving. Humans had innovative thinking but lacked the resources for large-scale space exploration. We propose the following agreement, Morrison said on the final day. Earth remains independent and controls our solar system. In exchange, human advisors will work with Zephyrian scientists and military leaders to develop new approaches to the challenges facing your empire. Chancellor Mordeth considered the proposal. And what of our other subject species? Some have already begun asking questions about the battle. They wonder if they too could resist our rule. Dr. Carter smiled. Perhaps it's time to ask them what kind of relationship they actually want. Fear only works until someone finds a way around it. The peace treaty was signed aboard the space station with representatives from both species present. The agreement established Earth as an independent partner of the Zephyrian Empire rather than a conquered territory. Human specialists would work throughout Zephyrian space, sharing their problem-solving methods and innovative thinking. But the most important part of the treaty was a new policy regarding other species in the Empire. Instead of automatic conquest, the Zephyrians agreed to offer partnership and cooperation to any species that demonstrated valuable capabilities. Captain Hayes and his crew were honored by both governments. The Zephyrians created a new military, decoration specifically for the human crew that had defeated their fleet and then shown mercy to their enemies. It was called the Star of Innovation, recognizing achievement through creative thinking rather than destructive force. Admiral Vexitar, who had once led the invasion fleet, became the first Zephyrian officer to train with human tactical specialists. He spent months learning human approaches to problem-solving and strategy. When he returned to the Empire, he carried new ideas that would revolutionize Zephyrian military thinking. 6 months after the peace treaty, the first joint human Zephyrian exploration mission launched toward unexplored regions of space. Captain Hayes commanded the human ship while Admiral Vextar led the Zephyrian vessel. Their mission was to make peaceful contact with unknown species and offer cooperation instead of conquest. Dr. Carter established an exchange program between Earth and Zephyrian universities. Human students learned advanced physics and engineering from alien professors, while Zephyrian students studied human innovation techniques and creative problem-solving methods. The victory that had begun with 4 people in a small ship refusing to accept defeat had grown into something much larger. It had changed the way 2 entire civilizations approached the challenges of existence in a vast and complex galaxy. As Hayes stood on the bridge of his new ship, preparing for another joint mission, he thought about how much had changed. A year ago, humanity had been alone in the solar system, barely aware that alien civilizations existed. Now, they were partners in a growing alliance that stretched across the stars. The war that had lasted less than a day had ended not with destruction, but with the beginning of a new kind of relationship between species in the galaxy. It proved that sometimes the greatest victories come not from defeating your enemies, but from helping them become something better. The alarm bells rang through the command center of the Galactic Council. Admiral Zethkar of the Vorthon Empire walked slowly to the center of the room. His blue skin looked pale under the bright lights. The other alien leaders sat in their chairs, waiting to hear bad news. They all knew why he was here. 3 more systems have fallen, Admiral Zethkar said. His voice was quiet, but everyone could hear him clearly. The human ship struck again. Just like before, it came from nowhere. It destroyed our fleets and then disappeared. Our sensors never saw it coming. Our weapons never touched it." The room became very quiet. Nobody wanted to speak first. They had all heard the stories about this mysterious human ship. Some said it was just one vessel. Others believed it was an entire fleet that could turn invisible. But everyone agreed on one thing. It was the most dangerous ship in the galaxy. "What do we call this ship?" asked Commander Veltar from the Zephyrian Navy. His green eyes showed fear that he tried to hide. "The humans call it the Phantom's Edge," Admiral Zethkar replied. "Our intelligence reports say it has only 100 crew members. 100. Humans against the entire Galactic Council, and they are winning." Far away from the council meeting, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship. The Phantom's Edge moved silently through space, heading toward its next target. Jake was 45 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been fighting this war for 3 years. Every day brought new battles against impossible odds. "Captain, we have enemy ships on the scanner," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez. She was 28 years old and the best tactical officer in the human fleet. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel as she studied the enemy positions. Jake looked at the main screen. 12 alien warships were moving in a circle around a small planet. Each ship was 3 times bigger than the Phantom's Edge. Their weapons could destroy an entire city with one shot. But Jake was not worried. He had faced worse odds before. "How many people live on that planet?" Jake asked. "About 50 million, Amy answered. "All human colonists. The aliens want to use them as slaves in their mining operations." Jake's face became hard. The aliens had been taking human colonies for months. They thought humans were weak because Earth had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago. They thought wrong. "Chief Collins, is the quantum drive ready?" Jake called out. Pete Collins looked up from his engineering station. He was a big man with strong hands that were always dirty from working on the ship's engines. Sweat covered his forehead as he checked the energy readings. "The quantum drive is running at full power, Captain," Pete said. "But I have to warn you, we have been using it a lot lately. The exotic matter containers are getting low. We might only have enough energy for 3 more jumps." Jake nodded. The Phantom's Edge ran on technology that should not exist. The ship could move through dimensions that other species could not even imagine. It could become solid when it needed to fight and become like a ghost when it needed to hide. But this power came with a price. The exotic matter that powered the quantum drive was very hard to make. "Sir, the enemy commander is sending us a message," said Lieutenant Sam Phillips from the communications station. He was young, only 23, but he was very good at his job. "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The face of an alien appeared on the screen. It had red skin and 4 eyes. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth. Jake recognized the species, a Corellian battle commander. They were known for being cruel to prisoners. "Human ship, you are surrounded," the alien said in broken English. "Surrender now, and we will make your death quick. Fight us, and we will make you suffer for days before you die." Jake smiled. He had heard these threats many times before. "Tell your commander that humans do not surrender," he said to Sam. "Should I send the message, sir?" Sam asked. "No," Jake said. "Show him instead." The alien ships began to move closer to the Phantom's Edge. Their weapons started to charge up, creating bright lights along their hulls. On paper, this should be an easy victory for them. 12 ships against 1. But Jake had learned something important during his years of fighting. Numbers did not always matter. Sometimes being impossible to predict was better than having big guns. "Amy, target their command ship," Jake ordered. "Pete, prepare for quantum phase." "Quantum phase ready, Captain," Pete called out. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was small, but they were the best humans he had ever worked with. Amy could hit targets that other gunners said were impossible to reach. Pete could make the ship's engines do things that violated the laws of physics. Sam could hack into alien communication systems that were supposed to be secure. And Carol Young, his navigation officer, could plot courses through space that should not exist. "Carol, take us into the quantum layer," Jake said. Carol's hands moved over her controls. She was 31 years old and had been flying ships since she was 16. Her family had been space traders before the war started. She knew space better than anyone Jake had ever met. "Entering quantum phase in 3, 2, 1, Carol announced. The Phantom's edge began to change. The solid metal of the ship became like mist. The bright lights of the bridge became dim and strange. Outside the windows, space itself looked different. The stars were still there, but they seemed to move and dance in ways that hurt to watch. The alien ships on the scanner began to fire at where the Phantom's edge had been. Their powerful weapons hit empty space. Energy beams and missiles passed through the area where the human ship should be, but there was nothing there to hit. "They cannot see us now," Amy reported. "Their sensors show empty space." Jake felt the familiar feeling of existing between dimensions. It was like being underwater and flying at the same time. The quantum layer was where the Phantom's edge became truly dangerous. Here, the ship could move in directions that did not exist in normal space. It could strike from angles that alien minds could not understand. "Take us behind their command ship," Jake ordered. "Stay in the quantum layer until we are in position." The Phantom's edge moved through impossible space, sliding between dimensions like a shark through water. The alien ships continued to fire at shadows, not knowing that death was moving silently around them. In a few minutes, they would learn why the Phantom's edge was the most feared ship in the galaxy. Jake looked at his crew one more time. They were ready. It was time to show the aliens what humans could do when they stopped following the rules. News of the impossible victory spread across Earth within hours. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the emergency control room, staring at reports that seemed too good to be true. 300 alien warships floated helplessly in space, completely powerless. One small human ship had defeated the entire invasion fleet. "Confirm those readings," Jake ordered the communications officer. "I want to be absolutely certain." The young woman checked her instruments again. "Confirmed, sir. Every enemy vessel shows 0 power output. Their weapons are offline, engines dead. The UES Defiance is the only active ship in the area." Dr. Lisa Carter burst into the room, her tablet in hand and excitement on her face. "Jake, I've been analyzing the data from Captain Hayes. The electromagnetic pulse technique they used could change everything. We can replicate it, improve it. No alien fleet will ever threaten us this way again." Jake shook his head in amazement. Less than 24 hours ago, he had been preparing Earth's surrender. Now, humanity had achieved the greatest military victory in its history. But as the initial excitement faded, new problems began to emerge. "Sir," the intelligence officer reported, "we're receiving communications from other star systems. Word about the battle is spreading through alien communication networks. Several species are asking questions about human capabilities." Jake realized that their victory would have consequences far beyond Earth. For centuries, the Zephyrian Empire had been the dominant military power in this region of space. Other alien races had been forced to submit to their rule. Now, a previously unknown species had defeated the Empire's entire invasion fleet. Meanwhile, floating among the disabled alien ships, Captain Hayes faced a different kind of problem. Many Zephyrian vessels were experiencing life support failures. The electromagnetic pulse had not only destroyed their weapons and engines, but also damaged critical systems needed to keep the crews alive. "Captain," Grace Miller reported from her communication station, "I'm receiving distress signals from 17 alien ships. Their air recycling systems are failing. They're asking for help." Hayes looked around at his own crew. The Defiance was barely functional itself. Chief Engineer Amy Johnson had managed to restore basic life support and communications, but their engines were still offline. They were stranded in the middle of space with limited supplies. "How many aliens are we talking about?" Hayes asked. Nick Davis checked the alien ship configurations on his tactical display. Each Zephyrian vessel carries about 3,000 crew members. If 17 ships are in trouble, that's over 50,000 lives at risk. Hayes knew what he had to do, even though it went against every military principle he had learned. These aliens had come to conquer Earth, but they were now helpless and dying. As a human being, he couldn't simply watch them suffocate. Amy, Ken, we share our atmospheric processing technology with their ships? Hayes asked. Johnson looked surprised. You want to help them? I want to keep them alive, Hayes replied. We're not murderers. Johnson worked at her console for several minutes. I can transmit the technical specifications for a basic air recycling system. Their engineers should be able to build temporary units from spare parts. It won't be comfortable, but it will keep them breathing. Hayes made the decision that would later be remembered as one of the most important moments in human history. Do it. Send the plans to every ship that needs them. The transmission went out immediately. Within hours, alien engineers were using human technology to save their own crews. The irony was not lost on anyone. The species that had come to conquer Earth was now depending on human generosity for survival. Back on Earth, Lieutenant Commander Ben Parker worked with Dr. Carter to analyze the long-term implications of their victory. They gathered in Carter's laboratory, surrounded by computers displaying tactical information and alien technology data. This changes everything, Carter said, pulling up a star map on her main screen. The Zephyrian Empire controls 12 star systems. They have hundreds of colonies and dozens of subject species. If word gets out that humans defeated their best fleet, those conquered races might start asking questions. Parker nodded. We need to be prepared for whatever comes next. Other alien empires might see us as a threat now. They might try to destroy us before we become too powerful. Carter highlighted several star systems on her map. Or they might want to ally with us. Think about it, Ben. We've just proven that technological superiority isn't everything. Innovation and creative thinking can overcome seemingly impossible odds. In the Zephyrian home system, Supreme Chancellor Mordeth called an emergency meeting of the High Council. The massive chamber was filled with the Empire's most powerful leaders, all trying to understand how their invincible fleet had been defeated. Admiral Vextar's reports make no sense, declared Council member Jexral. How could one small ship disable 300 of our most advanced warships? Chancellor Mordeth studied the technical data transmitted from the battle site. The humans used our own technology against us. They found a weakness in our shield network that we never considered possible. Then we must attack immediately with our reserve fleets, suggested another council member. Destroy them before they can use this technique again. But Chancellor Mordeth was thinking about something else. In all the centuries of Zephyrian expansion, they had never encountered a species that fought the way humans did. Every other race had either surrendered quickly or fought with conventional weapons until they were overwhelmed. Humans were different. No, the Chancellor said finally. We will not send more fleets to be defeated. These humans have shown us something we thought was impossible. They found a solution that our best military minds never considered. The council chamber fell silent. The idea that the Zephyrian Empire might not be invincible was almost too shocking to accept. Back in the disabled fleet, Admiral Vextar sat in his darkened command center, thinking about his conversation with Captain Hayes. The human had not gloated over his victory or demanded surrender. Instead, he had offered help to save Zephyrian lives. It was behavior that Vextar could not understand. Sir, his communications officer reported, the humans have transmitted repair instructions for our life support systems. They're also offering to share food and medical supplies with ships that need them. Vextar stared at the transmission. Data. They're helping us? After we came to conquer their world? Yes, sir. Captain Hayes says that innocent crew members shouldn't suffer because of their leaders' decisions. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vextar began to question everything he believed about warfare and conquest. These humans had defeated his fleet completely, but instead of destroying their enemies, They were trying to save them. 3 days after the battle, a small diplomatic vessel approached the disabled fleet. Ambassador Kralthex was aboard, carrying a message from the Zephyrian High Council. The message was unlike anything in the Empire's history. The Zephyrian Empire wanted to negotiate. As Hayes read the diplomatic request, he realized that their victory had accomplished something even more important than saving Earth. They had forced one of the galaxy's most powerful empires to reconsider its entire approach to dealing with other species. The real war was over. Now the hard work of building peace could begin. The Defiance moved through space like a ghost, invisible to the hundreds of alien warships that surrounded it. Captain Hayes gripped his chair as they passed between two massive Zephyrian vessels. Each enemy ship was large enough to hold his entire vessel in its cargo bay. "Distance to Formation Center?" Hayes asked quietly. 2,000 kilometers, Nick Davis replied, his voice barely a whisper. Even though the aliens couldn't hear them, everyone on the bridge spoke softly. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Amy Johnson worked frantically at her engineering station, preparing the electromagnetic pulse generator. Sweat ran down her face as she rerouted power from every non-essential system on the ship. "I'm channeling everything through the communication array," she said. "Life support, artificial gravity, even the coffee machine. We'll have one shot at this." Grace Miller monitored alien communications from her console. "They're still quiet," she reported. "No signs that they've detected us. But, Captain, I'm picking up something else. They're receiving orders from their command ship." Hayes turned to look at her. "What kind of orders?" "They're preparing to move closer to Earth," Miller said, her face pale. "The deadline is in 8 hours, and they want to be in position for the attack." Hayes felt his stomach tighten. If the Zephyrian fleet moved before the Defiance reached the center of their formation, the mission would fail. Earth would have no defense against the alien invasion. "How long until we reach the optimal position?" Hayes asked Johnson. 20 minutes, she replied. "But Captain, I need to warn you about something. When we fire this pulse, every system on the ship will overload. We'll lose life support, engines, everything. If the pulse doesn't work, we'll be sitting ducks." Davis looked up from his tactical station. "Sir, I'm reading movement in the alien fleet. 3 ships are changing position. They're moving toward the inner solar system." Hayes cursed under his breath. The aliens were starting their approach to Earth. Soon, the entire fleet would be in motion, and the careful positioning required for Johnson's plan would be impossible. "Can we speed up our approach?" Hayes asked. "Not without risking detection," Davis said. "The faster we move, the more likely their sensors will pick us up." Hayes had to make a choice: move faster and risk discovery, or maintain stealth and risk arriving too late. He thought about his sister Kate and her children, probably sleeping peacefully, while 300 alien warships prepared to attack their world. "Increase speed by 50%, Hayes ordered. "If they detect us now, we're close enough to complete the mission." The Defiance accelerated toward the heart of the alien formation. On the main screen, Hayes could see enemy ships in every direction. Some were so close he could make out individual weapon turrets and shield generators. The alien vessels moved with mechanical precision, like parts of a giant machine. "Sir," Miller called out urgently, "I'm detecting increased chatter on their communication channels. They're running final system checks before the attack." "How long until they begin moving?" Hayes asked. "Based on their transmission patterns, maybe 10 minutes. Johnson looked up from her controls, panic in her eyes. "Captain, we need 15 minutes to reach the center point. If they start moving before then, the harmonic resonance won't work." Hayes felt the weight of humanity's survival pressing down on him. Everything depended on timing. They had to reach the exact center of the alien formation before the fleet began its attack on Earth. "There," Davis said suddenly, pointing at his screen. "Formation center is dead ahead. 5 minutes at current speed." The Defiance continued its silent approach through the maze of alien ships. Hayes watched the tactical display as they moved, closer to their target point. Red dots representing enemy vessels surrounded them on all sides. One wrong move, one system malfunction, and they would be vaporized instantly. "Captain," Johnson said, "I'm ready to fire the pulse. All power has been rerouted to the communication array. When I activate it, we'll have about 30 seconds before our life support fails." Hayes nodded. "What happens after we fire?" "If it works, every alien ship in the fleet will lose power simultaneously," Johnson explained. "Their shields will overload, their weapons will shut down, and their engines will stop. They'll be completely helpless." "And if it doesn't work?" Johnson didn't answer, but her expression said everything. "Incoming transmission," Miller announced. "It's from the alien command ship." Admiral Vextar's face appeared on the main screen. The alien commander looked angry, his black eyes glowing with fury. "Human vessel, you are detected! Surrender immediately or be destroyed!" Hayes felt his heart stop. They had been discovered just minutes before reaching their target. Around them, alien ships began turning their massive weapon turrets toward the Defiance. "Captain," Davis called out, "multiple ships are targeting us. We have maybe 30 seconds before they fire." Hayes looked at Johnson. "Are we close enough?" Johnson checked her calculations one final time. "We're 500 meters off the optimal position, but it should still work. The resonance might be slightly weaker, but it should cascade through their network." "Do it," Hayes ordered. Johnson's hands flew over her controls. "Firing electromagnetic pulse in 3, 2, 1. The Defiance shuddered as every system on the ship overloaded simultaneously. The lights went out, the artificial gravity failed, and the air recycling system stopped working. But from the communication array, an invisible wave of electromagnetic energy rippled outward at the speed of light. Hayes floated in zero gravity, watching his crew work by emergency lighting. Around them, the alien ships continued to charge their weapons. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the Zephyrian vessels began to go dark. The pulse hit the nearest ships first, causing their shields to overload in brilliant flashes of light. The energy feedback cascaded through their synchronized network, jumping from ship to ship like a chain reaction. Within seconds, the overload reached vessels thousands of kilometers away. Hayes watched in amazement as the massive alien fleet died around them. Warships that had seemed invincible moments before now floated helplessly in space, their weapons silent and their engines cold. Emergency lights flickered on alien bridges as crews tried desperately to restore power. "My God," Miller whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "It worked! It actually worked!" 300 enemy ships, the entire Zephyrian invasion fleet, had been disabled by one small human vessel. Hayes felt tears in his eyes as he realized what they had accomplished. Against impossible odds, 4 people had saved the human race. Davis managed to get the communication system working on backup power. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the alien command ship." Admiral Vextar appeared on the screen again, but this time his expression was very different. The arrogant commander looked shocked and confused, surrounded by darkened control panels and flickering lights. "This is impossible," the alien said, his voice barely a whisper. "How did you do this?" Hayes smiled, despite the fact that his own ship was barely functional. "We're human," he said simply. "We don't give up." The Defiance floated in the middle of the disabled alien fleet, its crew alive and humanity safe. In the distance, Earth continued to orbit the sun, unaware that the greatest threat in its history had just been defeated by 4 people who refused to accept the impossible. The Zelkari missiles streaked through space toward Jake's ship, their guidance systems locked onto the target. Admiral Vexai was confident that no single vessel could survive an attack from his flagship's most powerful weapons. But as the missiles closed in, something unexpected happened. "Incoming projectiles detected," the ship's hybrid AI announced in a calm voice. "Implementing defensive countermeasures." Carlos didn't wait for orders. He threw the ship into a spinning dive that would have been impossible with the original Zelkari systems. The human modifications allowed the vessel to change direction instantly, without the long deceleration periods that limited alien spacecraft. 3 missiles shot past them harmlessly, confused by the sudden movement. How did they evade guided missiles? One of HFY's officers asked in disbelief. The 4th missile managed to adjust its course and struck the ship's rear section. But instead of exploding through the hull as expected, the hybrid armor absorbed the impact and distributed the energy across the entire vessel. The ship shook, but continued flying. Impossible, HFY muttered. Our weapons should have disabled them completely. Jake felt the ship's systems compensating for the damage. The self-repairing hull was already fixing the minor burns, while the antimatter reactor continued providing steady power. Status report, he called out. Hull integrity at 98% and rising, Amanda reported from her engineering station. The hybrid armor worked exactly as designed. The Zelkari weapon, energy actually charged our backup power cells. Maria activated the ship's defensive systems. Jake, I'm reading multiple energy signatures. They're preparing to fire everything they have at us. Let them, Jake said grimly. Time to show them what our modifications can really do. The Zelkari fleet opened fire with coordinated precision. Energy beams, plasma cannons, and electromagnetic pulse weapons all targeted the single human ship. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon, but Jake's vessel responded with capabilities that defied every rule of space combat. The hybrid shielding system, designed by combining human energy absorption technology with alien deflection. Fields did something no pure Zelkari defense could accomplish. Instead of simply blocking the incoming energy, it captured and redirected the power into the ship's own systems. The antimatter reactor surged with additional fuel, making the ship faster and stronger with each attack. Their weapons are making us more powerful, Alex said with amazement. The AI is learning from each attack and adapting our defenses in real time. Carlos pushed the ship through maneuvers that violated everything the Zelkari knew about physics. The vessel could accelerate, stop, and change direction without following the normal laws of momentum. While Zelkari ships needed time to turn or reverse course, the human modifications allowed instant response to pilot commands. Target the engines, HFY ordered his fleet. If we cannot destroy them, we will disable their ability to escape. The Zelkari ships surrounded Jake's vessel, firing from all directions to prevent any escape route. But Carlos had been studying their attack patterns, and he saw something the aliens missed. Their coordinated approach was predictable, following standard military procedures that never changed. They're too organized, Carlos said as he threw the ship into another impossible turn. They fight like machines, following the same patterns. Every time. But humans know how to improvise. Jake watched the tactical display as his ship danced between enemy fire. The Zelkari were better armed and outnumbered them 5-1, but they couldn't adapt to fighting an opponent that refused to follow logical combat rules. Maria, can we return fire without causing permanent damage? Jake asked. He didn't want to start a war, but they needed to defend themselves. The modified weapon systems are ready, Maria replied. I've programmed them to disable rather than destroy, but Jake, if we fire back, we'll be proving that humans can match Zelkari military technology. Then that's exactly what we're going to prove, Jake said. The ship's weapons came online with power levels that exceeded the original Zelkari specifications. Maria had redesigned the energy distribution system to focus multiple weapon types into single, concentrated bursts. When the ship fired, it wasn't with the steady, predictable beams that Zelkari vessels used. Instead, it released rapid, precise pulses that adapted to each target's defensive systems. The first shot struck the nearest Zelkari cruiser's shield generator. Instead of the prolonged battle that Admiral HFY expected, the human weapon punch threw the alien defenses in seconds and disabled the enemy ship's main systems without destroying it. One cruiser disabled, Alex reported. Their ship is still intact, but they've lost power to weapons and engines. Vex High stared at his tactical display in shock. How did they penetrate our shields so easily? That should have been impossible. His weapons officer looked confused and frightened. Admiral, their weapon signatures don't match any known technology. It's like they're using our own energy frequencies against us. The second Zelkari ship tried to ram Jake's vessel, hoping to disable it through physical contact, but the hybrid hull was stronger and more flexible than pure alien metal. When the ships collided, the Zelkari vessel bounced off harmlessly while Jake's ship absorbed the impact energy and converted it to additional power. Their hull composition is completely wrong, another Zelkari officer reported to the Admiral. Our sensors show Zelkari materials, but the structure is different. It's like they've mixed our technology with something else. Carlos spun the ship around and accelerated directly toward Vex High's flagship. The Admiral's vessel was the largest and most heavily armed, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire cities. But size and firepower meant nothing if the weapons couldn't hit their target. All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel, Vex High commanded. Maximum power. Destroy them before they can reach us. The combined firepower of 4 remaining. Zelkari ships focused on Jake's vessel. Energy beams crossed and intersected, creating a web of destruction that should have vaporized any spacecraft. But the human ship flew through the attack like it was sailing through a gentle rain, shields holding at 120%, Amanda called out. We're actually gaining power from their attacks. Greg Holmes watched his antimatter reactor readings with excitement. The power absorption system is working better than we ever hoped. They're basically fueling our ship with their weapons. Jake realized they had one chance to end the fight without causing serious damage to the Zelkari fleet. Carlos, get us close to the flagship. Maria, prepare to demonstrate our maximum firepower, but target their weapon systems only. The ship accelerated to speeds that made the Zelkari weapons tracking systems useless. In seconds, they were alongside Admiral Vex High's massive flagship. The alien vessel was 3 times larger and carried enough weapons to level a continent, but it couldn't bring its guns to bear on a target moving so fast and close. Fire! Jake commanded. Maria released a concentrated burst from every weapon system on the ship. The energy beam was focused and precise, striking the flagship's main weapon array with surgical accuracy. The Zelkari ship's most powerful guns exploded in brilliant flashes, but the hull remained intact and the crew unharmed. In less than 30 seconds, the pride of the Zelkari fleet had been reduced to a helpless giant. The Admiral's flagship drifted in space, its weapons destroyed and its engines disabled. The remaining ships in the fleet stopped firing, too shocked to continue the attack. Admiral Vex High's face appeared on Jake's screen again, but this time, his expression was completely different. The arrogance was gone, replaced by confusion and something that might have been fear. What have you done to our ship? Vex High demanded. This was supposed to be worthless salvage. How did you create something that can defeat an entire Zelkari fleet? Jake smiled at the alien admiral. We didn't just repair your ship, Admiral. We made it better. Human engineering isn't about building things to exact specifications. It's about taking what exists and making it work better than anyone thought possible. The space around them was filled with disabled Zelkari ships, proof that human creativity and determination could overcome any obstacle. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was no longer the primitive species that could be dismissed and ignored.